Hi everyone, I'm Sara Lawson from Sew Sweetness. Thanks so much for joining me for Stitched In with Sara, my weekly sewing motivation. Okay, so here's how this works. This is the very first episode of Stitched In with Sara, and the whole goal of this weekly chat is for you to be motivating me to get more sewing done, for me to be motivating you, and hopefully together we'll get some more sewing projects and UFOs finished so we can get to more of our fabric stash, because I don't know about you, but I certainly have way too much fabric and it would be nice to get through a lot of it and have lots more sewing projects completed. So feel free at any time to leave me a photo in the comments of something that you're working on, and I hope you'll join me again next Thursday and post photos in the comments of your finished sewing project or progress on that same project. So every Thursday, let's see if we can get some more sewing done together. So I just want to say hi to some of you that are joining the chat now. Kim's here, Janet, Gwenna, thanks so much for joining me. We have a lot to get through the chat this week, but here's my UFO that I'm working on. This is part of it that I started this morning, and in the overlay in your screen there's a photo of the pattern cover. So this is the Tasty Table Runner pattern by Jaybird Quilts, and I have had this fabric cut out for this project for, I kid you not, 5 years. I've had these exact fabrics cut out of Tula Pink's Birds and the Bees fabric line for 5 years. And it's not that I had these fabrics cut out and hidden away in a box. I literally had these on my bookshelf in plain sight for the past 5 years. So I figure, you know, what better time than Stitched In with Sara to get cracking on this table runner. I've made one before in the past about 5 years ago, and for some reason I cut another one out. It's a really quick project, but I really need to finish this because I can't have this sitting on my bookshelf anymore. So I'm going to be, while I'm showing you videos tonight, sewing a little bit on this project, and let's see if I can get some more done. But I finished half of the piece portion, and I'm really into rainbow colors, and so I'm really loving the way these fabrics are coming together. I'm going to finish during the chat. Hopefully I started working on the second half of the table runner. Let's see if I can get this piece and attached to the first half. But yeah, this is a great pattern, and Jaybird Quilts also has an acrylic template to go along with a lot of her patterns, and it makes cutting for this pattern and for a lot of her other patterns really fast and easy using the acrylic template. Anita, oh, I have another fellow Chicagoan on the chat tonight. Anita just joined us. So before I get to working on this, I'm going to introduce my sewing tutorial video for tonight. And be sure to stick around for after the sewing tutorial because I have a lot of other fun things planned. I'm showing another one of the Minikins patterns. I have a fun interview, and I also have some great customer appreciation photos at the end of the chat. So you'll want to stick around for after the sewing tutorial video. But today's sewing tutorial was something I showed earlier in the year, and it's a tutorial on how to make a mesh pocket and add it to any bag. So it's a mesh zippered pocket. And I've got a couple bags here to show you what that exactly looks like. So, got some receipts in this backpack. Clearly I've used this myself, but here's a mesh zipper pocket in the inside of my Cumberland backpack. And there's also a mesh zipper pocket inside my Amethyst project bag. And let me show you what that looks like. So here's the mesh zipper pocket on that as well. So enjoy the tutorial for that, and I'm going to get to sewing on my Tasty Table Runner. Now it's time to grab your piece of mesh and one of your binding strips. So I'm just going to finger press that binding wrong sides together in half, and I'm going to pin this in place to the top edge of the mesh. And depending on which direction you cut your mesh, one direction is not stretchy and one direction is a little bit stretchy. So depending on which way you cut the mesh, it might stretch out a little bit. It's fine if it stretches out a little bit longer. We can always trim that mesh down after we've gotten it sewn in place to the lining of the bag. I'm going to sew this pinned edge using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but it's really important to sew with the fabric against the bed of your sewing machine because there's so many gaps and holes in the mesh. It's a bit harder to sew with it against the bottom of your machine, so just make sure that the fabric is face down. Okay, now we're going to press the seam up toward the binding. And it's fine to press the mesh, it's not going to melt or anything like that. Okay, and now we're going to bring that folded edge of the binding down so that it meets the opposite side. And just use the Wonder Clips to clip that in place. Okay, we're going to sew this lower edge 1/8 of an inch away from the fabric. Okay, after I sew the binding to the mesh, as you can see, usually it looks a bit wavy, so just hit it with your iron really quick to smooth it out. Okay, and then next we'll be attaching the zipper. And for attaching the zipper to the binding and the mesh, I like to use this Dritz Wonder Tape, and it's 1/4 of an inch wide, and it's a double-sided adhesive. So one side is sticky, which will attach to the zipper first, and then once that's stuck down, the paper just peels away. So here's the zipper, and I'm just going to stick that wash away Wonder Tape to the very lower edge of the zipper. And in the pattern, I instruct for this portion to be used with an all-purpose skirt and dress zipper, just like we did with the pouch. But I actually didn't have any zippers in the color that I liked to match my lining and my exterior fabrics in the skirt and dress zipper. So here I'm using a handbag zipper. But in the pattern, you're directed to use that all-purpose skirt and dress zipper. Okay, so just push that down with your fingers, and then one side of the paper will just start to peel off, and it'll reveal the second side of the adhesive. And this makes it definitely a lot easier to insert the zipper because the binding and the mesh kind of want to stretch out as you sew it in place. And by sticking it down first, you'll be assured that things won't look stretched out. Okay, and you'll just want to cover the binding on that zipper tape halfway. Okay, and we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew that top edge of the binding 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric. And actually before I lied when I said we wouldn't need the zipper foot anymore. depending on if you're using the handbag zipper like I am, or as called for in the pattern, the all-purpose zipper, you might not be able to get close enough to the binding with your regular foot. So if that's the case, you might need to switch out to your zipper foot. But try it with your regular foot first. Depending on your zipper, you might be okay. Okay, so this is the right side of the zipper. For this last piece of binding, I'm actually going to flip to the wrong side of the zipper. So here's my last piece of binding, and to make it simple, I'm just going to use, again, the Wonder Tape on the top edge of the zipper tape, right up against the edge. Okay, and I'm going to finger press that binding wrong sides together, and the raw edge of the binding is going to be placed on that top edge of the zipper. And again, wrong side of the zipper here. Okay, I'm going to just use some Wonder clips to secure it. And we're going to be sewing this pinned edge 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric. Okay, so I've got my mesh laid out so that the right side of the zipper is facing out. And I'm just going to press that seam toward that, up toward the folded edge of the binding. Okay, now I'm just going to bring that binding down so that it covers the stitch line. And then I'll use my Wonder clips to secure it in place. So as you'll notice, my zipper's a little bit longer than the binding and the mesh. And I'm going to wait to trim that zipper down until I've attached it to the lining with that zippered pouch. So if your zipper is longer as well, just leave it in place for now. No need to trim it yet. Okay, so I'm going to sew that lower edge of the binding 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric. Okay, now it's time to attach the mesh to that lining main panel with that zipper pouch already attached to it. So the bottom edge of the mesh is going to be even with the bottom edge of the lining fabric, and the side edges should also be aligned. If you're working with a longer zipper, make sure that zipper head is within the side edges of the lining main panel. And then go ahead and just use Wonder clips to secure everything in place. And if you feel more comfortable, you can use that Dritz wash away tape to secure that top edge of the binding. Okay, we're going to sew the top edge of the binding 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric, and we're also going to sew the sides and the bottom 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the lining fabric. So you can see the lining fabric through the mesh, so you want to follow that curve when you get to those two bottom corners. And I'm just going to use my zipper to trim, my scissors to trim the overhang of the zipper, if there is any. And then same thing on that bottom corner with the mesh. Just trim the overhang and do the same thing for the other side. Okay, so that was the tutorial on how to insert a mesh zippered pocket on a bag. So I just wanted to welcome a few first timers. Alice and Amy, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. There was a question during the tutorial. Anita wanted to know, do you have the dates set for next year's retreat? I'm looking forward to it. So we have not started selling tickets yet, but our 2 retreats for next year will be June, I think it's the 21st through the 24th, and then September 27th through the 30th. So look for more information on the 2 retreats for next year coming up probably at the beginning of the year. All right, so while the tutorial video was going on, I sewed a little bit more on my Tasty Table Runner. So I've got both halves of the braids, and later tonight I'm going to work on the sashing. So thanks for being motivating and finally getting me to start working on this 5-year-old project. Okay, so as promised, I'm going to show some more of the Minikins patterns. I have a series of patterns coming out on October 23rd called Minikins, and it's 12 patterns with videos to go along with them, and they're all really short patterns, 15 steps or less. So that's why we decided to call them Minikins, and many of them only need 1 zipper, no purse hardware, so they're really quick projects, and a lot of them also are fat quarter friendly, so 1 fat quarter for the exterior and for the lining. So this is another Minikin pattern, and it's called Cotton Candy Pouches. So it comes in 3 different sizes, and they're just really nice 3-dimensional zippered pouches. So this one's the small. This is the first one I made for this pattern, and this is the medium. This is my favorite one. And they're really nice and roomy inside. Good for cosmetics too. And here's the large. Yeah, the large is pretty big. All right, so again, this is the Cotton Candy Pouch. It's part of the Minikins, out on October 23rd. All right, so I have another video to show you. This is an interview. I'll be showing interviews with bag makers, showing some So Sweetness bags that they've made. So here's an interview with Kim from My Go-Go Life. Hi, I'm here with Kim Niedzwiecki from the website My Go-Go Life, and Kim makes a variety of sewing projects on her website, quilts, quilt blocks, garments, and bags. So hi Kim, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hi, Sarah.
And just to be completely honest, Kim's my best friend, and she agreed to do this first interview just so we could get the wheels going on the interviewing for bag making. So Kim, how many years have you been making bags for?
Ever since you told me I needed to make bags. So, so that was, let's see, 2012.
Okay. So it's all or partially my fault?
It is completely your fault, yes.
Okay, so which Sew Sweetness bags have you made, and if you could just show us a couple on the screen?
Well, the first one I ever made, I can't show you because I can't find it. I know I have it. It's storing some hand sewing items. It was the Naughty Secretary, and that was the first bag I ever made, and it was a lot of fun. I used fabric from Spoonflower. It was little retro televisions. Do you remember?
I do.
It was so cute. And I've also made, let's see, I made your airplane bag, which I love, easiest pattern ever. And I can't remember what this one was called, but you wrote the pattern for me in like one night. It was crazy. And, but you made it based on this block, which I think this block is a paper piece block, and you can find it on Kath Hall. What is her website? I'll have to think about it. But this block is available on her site. It's the first time I ever made a recessed zipper, which I love. And this is my favorite Alexander Henry print, other than Loma Birds. It's Marabella. It's so pretty. And then I also made bag, and I absolutely love this bag. It will hold, I kid you not, 13 pounds. I know because I was at my doctor's office and they couldn't believe how heavy my bag was, and they asked me to weigh it, and I said, sure. And it carried easily 13 pounds. And I really, this is probably my favorite bag. I use it the most.
Okay, so talking about modifications, I noticed on that Sloan bag, the original pattern has the pocket in the front, but you switched it up and put a quilt block on the front. So tell us a little bit about how you chose the fabrics for the front of that bag.
Well, the front of this one is all cathedral windows. I absolutely love putting cathedral windows on anything I can. Pin cushions, bags, pillows, you name it, I put it on. And I just wanted it to be really bright and colorful. All the background prints are different text prints. And this one was primarily Tula Pink, Birds and the Bees that I had in my stash. I'm a scrappy quilter, which means if you don't quilt, I have a lot of little tiny pieces of a large variety of fabrics, and I love to use them in little ways to make it pop. So this one was a lot of fun to do. I really enjoyed making this one. And for the airplane bag, this is another cathedral window variation. It's got all white backgrounds. All the centers are Liberty of London, and on the back, sadly I lost a button. On the back I added a pocket, and I don't believe that was in the original pattern.
No, it wasn't.
I happened to have these extra windows, and so I made them the focal point and then put a useful pocket in the back. The airplane bag, this was the first time I had ever sewn a bag. I had sewn a wallet with pleather, and I had some left over, and so I decided to use it to give, really finished look. So that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that. It's been a great.
So I know you sewed that airplane bag a few years ago, but you mentioned sewing with leather. Did you find it easy sewing with leather at the beginning, or did you have struggles with?
Everything I sew, I do practice pieces first. Even if it's something I've sewn on with before, I always tend to do a practice piece. So I did have some extra, and I did some practice runs, and I found that using, I used 40 weight, but now I would probably use a 28 weight thread with 40 weight in the bobbin, and either a denim or a leather needle. And I think my stitch length was about a 3, maybe 2.5, but I'm pretty sure it was a 3. And it's not very difficult to do, but if you do a practice first, then you're not going to be as afraid. Because once you punch that pleather, it doesn't self-heal, and so you want it to look nice.
Okay, good. So sewing those 3 bags, is there anything in particular that you learned that you liked doing, or was inversely, is there anything that you struggled with?
I absolutely love the recessed zippers. I am a security nut when it comes to traveling and going places. I've had my wallet stolen from the airport, and it's not very much fun. So I really like security, and a recessed zipper, you know, it really makes everything secure. So, and it looks nice too. It's very finished. So that, I think, is probably my favorite thing. Oh, and feet. I love purse feet. I've learned too. It's a great way to protect the bottom of your bag.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I always like to wrap up these interviews by sharing a personal story about the person that I'm interviewing. And Kim and I originally met online, and at the time, Kim's youngest and my oldest were in diapers, and we met on a cloth diapering website. So it was basically a series of message boards, not just on cloth diapering, but other topics. Some people had small businesses out of their homes. Some people were crafting, and it was just a great way to connect with other people that were moms. And so we first met because Kim bought some slash all of my fabric. When I first started learning how to sew as an adult, I had difficulty getting started, and I don't know if some of you out there feel the same way when you first started learning how to sew, but instead of working on projects at the beginning, I was just buying and collecting fabric. So I had this huge, gigantic Tupperware container with a lid, and it was all fabric. I just kept buying more, and I wasn't sewing with any of it. So after a certain amount of time, I decided to have a de-stash on this particular message board, and Kim replied, and she wanted to take basically everything that I was selling, right, Kim?
Kept replying, and you're like, oh, well, I have this. Would you be interested? It's like, yes.
Yeah, and so I got to move a lot of the fabric out of my sewing room, and I'm not sure, I don't remember after that how we continued to talk after the sale of the fabric.
Well, after the sale of the fabric, you noticed that I was an Oma, because I do have 3 grandchildren. And you said, oh, you're an Oma. And I said, yes, I am. And you said, well, I have an Oma too. And then that started everything. And so we basically started blogging together, and went to our first quilt market together. And then I sent you back all the fabric that I bought from you 8 years earlier.
It's totally true. I think it was a few months ago, or at least last year, that Kim sent me a lot of the fabrics that she had purchased from me. So all these old fabrics from Robert Kaufman. Yeah. And I have them now.
Yeah, and I don't have them anymore. So I'm pretty sure I have other fabrics of yours somewhere back here too. In the
Probably. You have a lot of fabric back there.
I have a lot of fabric back there.
Yeah, but it's so funny how things went full circle with the, me selling the fabric to you and then you giving it back to me. So
I was happy to. That made me ecstatic, because it got some of the fabric out of the upstairs closet, which I needed to move anyway, and I was happy that you could use it. It brought you joy, so that's what matters.
It did. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me today, Kim.
Thank you.
If you're out there and would like to participate in an interview with me about bags that you've sewn from my patterns, just leave me a note in the comments, and I'll be getting to a new interview next week. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that interview with Kim from My Go-Go Life. To close out this week's episode of Stitched In with Sara, I just wanted to show some customer appreciation photos for people who have made bags for my pattern. So if you've made something from a So Sweetness pattern, just post a photo of it in my Facebook fans group, and the link is in the description. And just go ahead and whenever you finish a bag, post a photo. I'd love to see it. And I know a lot of the other members of the group would like to see it as well. So we're going to start off with a Crimson and Clover train case made by Amy G. And Amy came to my retreat this past year, and Suzanne had a question in the comments. Suzanne wanted to know when next year's retreats will be, and both of them will be in Chicago. But anyway, Amy made, I think she made the large size Crimson and Clover at the retreat, and then she made the other 2 sizes at home. And I really love how her set came out, because obviously it's all matching, and I feel like it's sort of an 80s vibe to it with the seafoam piping and just the geometric fabrics. And I think these were for a gift, so I know I sure would love to get a gift like this, and handmade gifts are the best. So great job on this set, Amy. So the second customer appreciation photo is from Nicole K. And Nicole, I believe, made this Kismet trinket box for a swap. So she used denim fabric for the body of the bag, a bright red zipper, and then strawberry, I think, machine embroidery on the front. I believe this was for a strawberry swap. So I love this one as well. I really like a neutral fabric like denim with some trim on it or accent like the embroidery. So I think this one came out really beautifully. All right, the third photo is from Donna. Sorry, my mistake. Nicole K. She made 2 airplane bags. And I really think the vinyl or the leather on the straps and the bottom of the bag really pop out the simple monochromatic fabrics that she chose. So they're both navy fabrics with a little pop of white. And I think the vinyl, the brown or the leather really pops the colors and the large look of the bag. So great job on the set of airplane bags. And the last one is Audrey W., who made the Creative Maker supply case. And I'm really bad at taking photos. I have to spend a lot of time on the photos that I do take of my bags. And so I always appreciate a really well-styled photo. And as fall is coming up, I really like what she did with her Creative Maker supply case when she took the photo. The various fall elements, the leaves. This just looks like something to me from a magazine. So great job on the Creative Maker supply case, and excellent job on the photo. So again, don't forget to post your finished photos in the So Sweetness group. The link's in the description. And I'll see you again next Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time for Stitched In with Sara.